Hello, thank you very much for tuning. For those of you who are here for my live stream, I've decided to record this as a live stream just in case anybody wants to join me and listen to what I've got to say about Spotify, YouTube, and that kind of thing. So I made a video a few weeks ago explaining that I signed up to Spotify. Of course, they have a 3-month free trial session. So I decided to sign up to it. I've got a sound bar. I've got a Sony soundbar with a subwoofer, and I find the sort of sound quality fairly acceptable from that. And I decided to sign up. I've been using Spotify on the free service where they play ads now and again. So I found that it was quite good, especially with the amazing selection of music that you can listen to, whether it be pop, rock, classical, opera. I was absolutely stunned by the sheer selection. And so consequently, I actually decided to sign up on the 3-month deal, free for 3 months, and then you pay, I think it's £11.99 a month for ad-free listening. I signed up to that, and I've been using it every single day. I had some problems with the, I would say that I wasn't too happy with the sound quality coming from the soundbar. And one of my subscribers said that he managed to connect up his mobile phone to his hi-fi system through the MP3 socket on the front of his amplifier. And actually, I found this really interesting because I thought the soundbar is not really doing a brilliant job, because the amplifier is built into the soundbar. It's probably not that good quality an amplifier. The soundbar is a really kind of bizarre sort of long, shape, and then you've got one subwoofer, and it's not bad. I mean, let's face it, it's a heck of a lot better than a pair of basic computer speakers. It's far, far better than that, and I've been fairly satisfied using it. However, of course, my hi-fi system with my Cambridge Audio amplifier and my speakers, if I could somehow route Spotify into my hi-fi system, it could be a game changer. So what did I do? I bought a 3-meter long cable, which is a 3.5 millimeter jack to 3.5 millimeter jack stereo. So I connected my speaker out socket on my laptop, on my Acer laptop, speaker out into the MP3 socket on the front of my amplifier. And I selected MP3 on the options, switched from phono for my records to MP3, and had a go. I was actually very, very pleasantly surprised with the sound quality. Really very, very pleasantly surprised. I mean, it sounds to me just like, shall we say, CD quality. And I was over the moon, really. It was certainly a huge step up from what the soundbar was doing. And so I've been listening to that. I've been listening through my hi-fi system, Spotify, connected up via the cable. Might I add, I've also taken my phone into my Volkswagen Passat car. Now, I've never been able to connect up any phone to the Bluetooth system in there. I've got a VW installed, CD radio, and I've always been fairly happy with the quality on the CD. And I knew that there was some kind of possibility of connecting up by Bluetooth my phone, and I wondered whether it might be possible to play Spotify through my car hi-fi. Well, I spent some time fiddling around, and I eventually managed to pair up my phone with my car hi-fi, and I can now listen to Spotify wireless via Bluetooth. So I use the liked playlist. I've got about 50 songs in my likes, and I just play those, and pretty good. Very, very decent quality sound. I would say, more or less CD quality sound, I suppose. Of course, for those of you who don't like CDs or digital, you'll be saying, well, whoopee-doo for that. But, I've got nothing against CD. I don't think they're as good. I still think that records provide a better listening experience, but each to their own. let me just, somebody's left a chat here. Let me just see. Hello, Olanzip Mark II. And you say, I've been watching your vinyl videos for a while. I like your content. May I ask, what work did your parents do job-wise? My parents, okay. Well, my father, my father was mainly a laborer. He drove trucks. He was in the army in the 60s, and then he more or less sort of drove trucks in the 70s. He went into painting and decorating. And so, yeah, as for my mum, she was really just a sort of stay-at-home. She did some jobs before she was married, but apart from that, she was just a stay-at-home mum, really. So that's it. I don't know how that's relevant and why you want to know that, but I've got no problem saying. If you're wondering how did I turn out like I turned out, well, that's a long story. Okay, so let's just come back to what I was saying about the amplifier. So I've got a Cambridge audio amplifier. Look, it's not an audiophile amplifier. It cost me about, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, it cost me about £250. I wanted it specifically because it has a phono stage. I wanted to connect my record player to it. I'd sold my Croft pre-power combination, my valve, my beloved valve. I needed to raise money at some time. And I sold my Croft pre-power combination. And I was left without an amplifier. So I got back into amplification through this really entry-level amplifier, which actually I found quite reasonable. I find it, more than adequate. Of course, it hasn't got the sophistication and finesse of the Croft, but neither has any other part of my system compared with what I used to have. But it's still, I've got my Riga 2, and I'm quite happy with it. I'm just using a carbon cartridge, and I think it produces really good quality sound. So, yeah, what speakers am I using? Well, this is embarrassing. I'm using a pair of L-Tax bookshelf speakers, which I bought from Richer Sounds for about 50 quid. And these were really just intended to get me by. So I'll probably be in the market for something better. But, they're certainly better than this soundbar, I'll tell you that. Okay, so, yeah, just coming back to what I was saying about Spotify. So Spotify, what I've been doing more or less is going through a lot of 60s and 70s music, discovering some new music, a lot that I've never heard before. And I've been putting likes against all my favorite songs. I'm up to about 50 so far. So, yeah, I've been listening to The Jam. I've been listening to The Specials, Madness, Bob Marley. Of course, Blondie, Pink Floyd, Queen. Going back to the 60s, I've been listening to the Byrds, Cream. Didn't really know about the Byrds. But yeah, they're a good band. They sound a little bit sort of like the Beatles. I guess they were influenced by them. And I've been sort of getting through a lot of material on Spotify. It's been good. But on the other hand, it's been a bit overwhelming. I'm almost getting to the point where I feel like I've sort of discovered, I don't know, it's like sort of saturation point, a bit overkill. When you've got that amount of choice, it does seem like almost like it's coming too easily. And I don't know, there's something that I'm not entirely satisfied about the situation with Spotify and all the choice. That sounds bizarre, but well, let me move on, because I decided to test Spotify against some of my records. Okay, so for example, I've got a Beatles record with the Beatles, the LP with the Beatles, and the song All My Loving. Okay, so I've got it on Spotify, and I've got it on I say original LP. It looks like a late 60s pressing, but I think it's valid to do a comparison with those. Yeah, so what did I do? Yeah, so the song All My Loving, first I played it on Spotify. And when I played it on Spotify, I noticed something. And you can't really say this is my system. What I noticed is this, and I've noticed it the same with classical. I'll tell you what it is. First of all, I'd like to say that Spotify, from what I've seen so far and listened to, it's much more suitable for pop than classical, and I'll tell you why. My experience, I'm sure you'll have some comments about it. So just talking about this song, All My Loving, Paul McCartney, The Beatles, I noticed at the top end of McCartney's voice, when he's singing on Spotify, there's a slight ring right at the top of it, right at the top of his voice. There's a slight ring to it. It's difficult to describe. That wasn't present when I listened to the LP. This I found quite surprising because the sound of McCartney's voice on the LP was well-rounded, full. I didn't notice any distortion on the voice. I didn't notice there was any problem with the top end of his voice. But on Spotify, I noticed this slight ring, which I found a little bit kind of off-putting. Okay, so bear that in mind. Now, I decided to test some classical out. I listened to a lot of Mozart, okay? Now, Mozart, a lot of his concertos and his symphonies, when in his violin passages, he goes into the really high notes. A lot of people would say, oh, because he's trying to, produce pretty music and, the higher notes sound are used to create that effect. So we're talking about the violins going really high. So what I noticed, and this is the strange thing about, I mentioned that ring at the top of McCartney's voice. I noticed the same thing when I was listening to Spotify. Oddly enough, on a digital recording, I'm trying to remember what the piece was. I think it was, I'll tell you what it was. It was Malcolm Bilson playing a Mozart piano concerto with John Eliot Gardner, conducting the English Baroque soloists. Now, in particular, on those period instruments, they've got a sort of higher sounding, they kind of sound almost like a register up from modern violins. It's a really kind of rasping sound. There's a lot of bite on those instruments. And again, I noticed that on Spotify when I played, there's a slight ring at the top end. Now, it may well be that a lot of people can't hear this ring, and maybe it's just me. But I spent a lot of time listening to classical music. I spent 35, 40 years listening to it, and I specifically like Mozart. It might well be that with Beethoven, I wouldn't notice this because he doesn't tend to go on the really high notes with the violin. But certainly on this Mozart piano concerto, I did notice it on Spotify. When I played the digital LP, so you can't blame it on digital sound. When I played the digital LP on archive, I didn't notice it. There were no issues at all. Now, what can I attribute this to? It's possible. I believe that because LP grooves can't accommodate the entire dynamic spectrum of sound, on the treble, they attenuate down slightly. This is what I've read. I don't know how true it is. And I wonder whether it's possible that both with McCartney and with the English Baroque soloists, where I was hearing that ring on the Spotify presentation, I wasn't getting it on the LPs because the sound has been slightly attenuated down. I don't know. I really don't know. But I also tried it out on YouTube Sound, by the way, and I got exactly the same thing. So it's not just Spotify. It seems to me that either LPs are somehow solving that issue. I know that a lot of you guys are going to say, oh, well, I never heard it, Stuart. You've got problems with your equipment. Well, if I've got problems with my equipment, then why is it that when I play the LP, it sounds fine? But when I play it through Spotify or YouTube, it doesn't sound fine. One thing I haven't tried yet is a CD. I've got to get hold of a CD of one of these recordings to see whether I get the same issue with the CD. Okay, so setting that aside, I concluded as follows, that Spotify and YouTube are perfectly okay for pop and rock. But for classical, I think that records are better. That's my conclusion. However, that's not to say that I'm not going to use Spotify or YouTube to listen to classical music. I will be doing, and just simply accepting that at times there will be this ring at the top end that I'm hearing. Okay? Okay, so onto my title. I said that I would be ditching Spotify. Yeah, I will be doing that. I will be ditching Spotify. I'll tell you why. Okay, well, first of all, sooner or later it's going to cost me money, which I think is $11.99 a month. But also, I found with classical something I find really irritating, that if I type in, say, Mozart Symphony Number 41, it will, excuse me, it will come back with typically, and you try to play, it will just play one movement, and then it will just go on to something completely unrelated. All right, I've been told that what you've got to do is cue one by one everything that you want to play. I find that one big pain in the neck. I don't want to have to do that. I find it irritating. On YouTube, you can go to a video, get a whole Mozart symphony, and just let it play through. You don't have to mess about cueing first, second, third movement. You don't have to do any of that. So I think that I'm going to use up the three free months on Spotify, and I'm going to start using YouTube. Look, I know a lot of you will say that, well, Spotify is better quality than YouTube. Maybe that's true. Maybe there is a marginal difference. I haven't noticed a massive difference. Maybe there's a marginal difference, and I'm not listening to YouTube Premium. I'm only listening to basic YouTube. But I've found the sound quality coming through my system on YouTube to be adequate, to be good enough. So somebody mentioned YouTube Premium. Maybe the sound quality is better. Maybe I'll try that. But I think that I'm going to stick with YouTube because look, you can get virtually anything on YouTube. Well, not anything, but I mean, like say Beethoven Symphony, you can probably find 10 different versions, and there's so much music on YouTube to experiment with, both pop, rock, classical. It's all there. You can listen to a whole album. If you want to listen to Dark Side of the Moon, the whole album on YouTube, you can do that. And coming through my speakers and my Cambridge audio, all right, it's not going to sound as good as the LP, in my opinion. It might not even sound as good as the CD, but it's going to sound pretty damn good enough to listen to. And with the convenience of it, I think it's fine. So that's my conclusion, really. If I found that Spotify was providing me with significantly better sound quality, then, I'd probably stick with Spotify. But I think YouTube will be adequate for my needs. And I will probably be mostly listening on YouTube and then listen to maybe one or two records during the day. I've been experimenting a bit with vinyl and, comparing sort of the digital listening experience through Spotify or YouTube, and then putting a record on. What do I like better? Well, of course, I always think that the record is more satisfying to listen to, but YouTube, Spotify, they're good enough. But that's what I've decided to do. I don't know. Let's have a look at your comments. No harm in Cambridge Audio. Yeah, I know Cambridge Audio. I suppose it's, I suppose it's kind of entry-level gear, which is genuinely sort of hi-fi quality and is quite respectable. So I'm happy with this amplifier. I've had better amplifiers, much better. I've had Name. I had a pre-power Name combination. Some people don't like Name. I know, N-A-A-I-M. And of course, I had that Croft pre-power combination valves, which was the best amplifier I ever had. So that's gone now. But the Cambridge Audio amplifier, the Topaz edition, it's all right. It's okay for now. It's fine. Unknown Legend says YouTube Premium is better. I might try the, if there's a free trial, I might have a listen to that and find out what it's like. But I don't know this thing about you can get anything on Spotify. Initially, I was sort of overjoyed by it. And I don't know, there's some strange psychological thing where when you've got unlimited music presented in front of you, I mean, it's almost like, it's a bit like overkill in a way. And I don't know, maybe do I miss sort of going through my records and deciding which one to pick one out? I don't know. I don't know really whether it's that. I don't know whether it's just me getting used to the technology and the choice. So, but anyway, yeah, so on balance, I'll just be going for YouTube. Okay, well, I don't know what else to say, really. I think that's about it. I've not really been buying too many records recently. I've got a lot to listen to still. And I've been selling some, but not that many. So I've got plenty to listen to here. Plus, of course, I've got YouTube and Spotify now. And I don't really feel like I'm not really much going into charity shops or sort of hunting around for records, because I just think I've got enough to be going on with now. Okay, well, that's all. Anyway, thank you for joining me. Hope you enjoyed this live stream. And thanks for your opinions, those of you who contributed to chat. I'm going to be ending the live stream now. Bye.